Hello and welcome to CORES Resident Services Tools Deep Dive, a model for putting the pieces together. Before we jump into this training, I want to encourage all of you to check out our website, coresonline.org. It has quite a bit of information, including application guidance, copies of the actual application questions, FAQs, a glossary of terms, and my personal favorite, the resource library. Our resource library provides samples of documents that are required for a CORES application. In addition, there are other useful examples in the resource library, including toolkits and documents that are not required for the CORES application, but may be helpful as you seek to build different tools or grow your organization's capacity. The library is here to help you. Many of these example tools are from CORES certified organizations that had excellent applications. But you don't need to replicate these examples to have a great application. They are meant to illustrate a variety of approaches you can take and tools you can use. All of this is with the goal of supporting your replicable and scalable system of resident services coordination. This training will specifically cover the 4 documents that you must upload as part of the fully completed CORES application. After you watch this training, go to the resource library and search results by topic so that you can look at real examples of each of these 4 documents we will talk about today. You will see that there are lots of topics to explore. Today we are going to focus on the following 4 documents because they are required, and they are some of what we get the most questions on. First, the community scan. Second, the resident opportunities and priorities assessment. Third, the property services plan. And fourth, the resident indicators and analysis report. I want to mention that all 4 of these documents must be from the same one property. While the CORES certification recognizes an organization's capacity, we ask applicants to select a property to feature in their application for these specific uploads. The applicant is representing that they have created tools like these of properties where they operate resident services and is picking one property to demonstrate this infrastructure and approach. It is also important to understand that when we can review the documents holistically, we then are able to look for alignment between them. If you achieve CORES certification, you will also be required to upload these 4 updated documents or tools again for the same property as well as an additional sample property 5 years later. That means that you will be uploading these tools for 2 properties every certification. We get a lot of questions about how these tools align with the development of a resident services program. SAFE developed a framework for a system of resident services coordination through a community of practice. The framework lays out a common approach for how many practitioners determine when and where to provide resident services, and how they identify and shape these specific priorities, plan, and indicators of success. The CORES certification is based off of this framework. This framework is also available on our website. Let's say we're starting with the process of developing a resident services program at a property. In general, I like to think of the community scan and resident opportunities and priorities assessment as where you are absorbing or taking in information. Then, the property services plan is a roadmap where you are laying out your plan to best serve residents. And lastly, the resident indicators and analysis report is more of a reflection or annual checkup to see what impact you are having, what's going well, and what might need to be changed. For the purpose of this exercise, I'm going to use a few examples along the way to give you a sense of the kinds of things we have seen highlighted in these threshold documents in the past. Before services begin at a property, we should start with the community scan, which is what it sounds like. You are scanning the surrounding area where residents live to see what's already there. We want to see 3 things. First, that you're looking for existing local amenities, services, community assets, potential partners, and other resources in the larger community before you implement your own resident services programs. This is frequently initially conducted in the pre-development phase or sometimes a bit later in the development process. However, this scan should be refreshed at least once every 6 years to account for new potential resources in the community. Conducting the community scan should help you to discover assets in your area. The scan might include an analysis for options for affordable, healthy food like food banks or a congregate meal program, or perhaps a local branch of the United Way provides free tax assistance every year. This could be included in your community scan. However, we would like to see more than just a community directory. Another element of the community scan is analyzing the quality of these institutions and partners. For example, communities often have multiple youth programs. But maybe during your analysis of vetting for quality, you discover that the Boys and Girls Club puts on a summer camp program, and that it also provides free transportation and shares some of your organizational values. From your analysis, you know that this youth program is likely a great option for your residents. Finally, a community scan must also include local data or community-level demographics. This could include census data, data from your local hospital, school data, and more. Organizations are also required to collect and review community data in their recertification application 5 years after initial certification. There are many sources of community data you can use, and here are just a few examples. Overall, the information in your community scan should demonstrate that you know what resources and assets already exist and what the gaps are so that you can best serve residents. You are not required to use a particular format for your community scan. However, we want to see that all of the required elements are included. Some organizations create their community scans using Excel, Word documents, or in other data systems or directories they use. Others may leverage outside resources like community health assessments or census reports. Some organizations collect information from community leaders and agencies. However, it's important that you make sure the external tools and data sources you leverage are regularly updated or available so that you can reference them in the future when you make updates to your community scan. Again, this document should be updated at least once every 6 years. When assessing quality of local community resources, we have seen organizations collect feedback from community leaders and agencies, as well as developing their own rubrics or scoring systems to assign a score for quality. While this is not a requirement, we strongly recommend that applicants assess the quality of resources in their community. Please see the CORES Resource Library for additional examples from other organizations, and remember that your community scan can look different from these examples as long as it addresses the required elements. The Resident Opportunities and Priorities Assessment should help you to understand your residents' backgrounds and identify resident priorities. It should be updated at least once every 3 years. We want to see, number 1, that you are collecting and analyzing resident demographic information about everyone at this property, such as race or ethnicity data, income and employment data, and more. Resident demographics help you answer important questions like, am I serving a senior population, school-aged kids, working-aged residents? Does the group of residents include a large immigrant population? And so on. Part 2 is that you are getting direct feedback from your residents. We want to see what you are asking and how you are asking it, or how the feedback is obtained, documented, and synthesized to understand trends. Perhaps you conduct a resident survey about self-reported personal and resident priorities or desired programming. Maybe you held resident meetings to understand resident perceptions or perspectives better. Feedback from the residents can be collected in a variety of ways, and we are not restrictive to how you collect this feedback. However, we do want to see that you are thoughtful and intentional about ensuring that you have a balanced perspective and aim to seek feedback that is representative of the residents living there. For example, interviewing 1 or 2 resident leaders does not necessarily represent the potential wide array of views, perspectives, and priorities of residents. Lastly, we want to see what was learned from the demographic information and resident feedback. If you learn that this property is home to a lot of school-aged children, or that 40% of residents don't have a primary care doctor, we'd like to see that noted here. This evaluation should help you to start considering options to meet resident priorities, like providing an after-school tutoring program, or partnering with a community health worker that can connect residents with affordable health providers. Here are just some examples of sources of resident feedback. Again, we are not prescriptive to how you collect feedback, but it should be thoughtful and recorded in a way it can be analyzed to inform services. You can find several examples of resident opportunities and priorities assessments in our CORES Resource Library. You aren't required to use a particular format for your resident opportunities and priorities assessment. However, we want to see that all of the required elements are included. While many organizations use surveys to collect resident feedback, we've discussed that there are many ways to collect feedback from residents. As a reminder, the Resident Opportunities and Priorities Assessment should be refreshed with updated demographics and resident feedback at least once every 3 years. In combination with the Community Scan, this should help to inform services and programming. The Property Services Plan is your roadmap to what gets implemented at a property and how. It also helps to build your institutional knowledge and memory. It should be updated at least once every 3 years, but as a best practice, we recommend organizations review their property services plans annually. First and foremost, your property services plan should tell us what you have decided to do. What services are going to happen? Maybe you learned from a survey question that 15% of your senior population has taken a fall in the past year, so you decide to offer a fall prevention class. 2. Who's providing the services? Another important element of the property services plan is detailing who provides services at the property. Is there a full-time resident services coordinator? If so, is there any other supplemental staffing, such as from regional resident services staff, a community health worker, or after-school program? All the staffing providing services on site should be clearly outlined in your plan. We also want to see your staffing and partnership model. How many hours of services are provided? What staff deliver on which programs and services? If you have external partners supporting programs, be clear about which partners support your programs and how frequently. Say you found out by conducting a community scan that there is no grocery store within 2 miles of the property, and you also discovered a couple of potential partners. Then, in your Resident Opportunities and Priorities assessment, you heard feedback that access to affordable, healthy food is an issue. So you decided to develop formalized partnerships with organizations like Meals on Wheels as part of your property services plan. This is the type of solution we are looking for, and this partnership should be captured and clearly outlined in your plan. What cultural, language, or potential other barriers exist, and how are you planning for these? Perhaps there's a significant immigrant population with low English language proficiency, or some residents are deaf. In that scenario, maybe you could hire bilingual staff or provide an ISL interpreter to bridge communication gaps. Importantly, how are you going to pay for these services? We would like to see that you have a budget included and what resources and sources you're using to pay for staffing and services, whether through property operations, grants, corporate contributions, or other sources. Lastly, what do you hope to achieve with this program plan? The Property Services Plan should tell us what your desired goals are and what measures you are going to use to track these goals. Maybe you hope to see increased social connection for seniors, increased housing stability, or improved reading levels for elementary school children. Some organizations track these different elements in different documents and systems. That's fine. For your CORES application, you will just need to package these documents together in one file to share as your combined property services plan. Other organizations create comprehensive plans that review each of these elements in tandem. For example, you may create a table or spreadsheet that outlines the different programs and services and the aligning staff and funding for each. Again, your property services plan should be updated at least once every 3 years and is your roadmap for services at the property. While we require that this tool is updated at least once every 3 years, we do recommend that it is reviewed at least annually in tandem with your budgeting process to ensure alignment. You can always find examples of the Property Services Plan in our CORES online resource library. These can help you think about ways to format your property services plan, although you may choose for this to look differently. The final tool to help you evaluate your impact at a property is the Resident Indicators and Analysis Report. The Resident Indicators and Analysis Report should be updated at least annually. First and foremost, it should align with your property services plan and desired goals that you articulated in your plan, as well as reflect the impact of your programs and services. We want to see how the resident engagement, programs, and services you chose to implement at the property, independently or collectively, added value or had an impact on residents. This document should demonstrate that you are analyzing your impact and show more than just outputs like participation. While it's important to track participation in programs and events, these are outputs, and we're also looking to see if there are changes in resident and property outcomes. For example, if you are tracking attendance at an after-school program, Are you also evaluating if reading levels are improving? If you provide community building events, are you also seeing changes to social connectedness or tracking residents' perceptions around safety? If you provide fall prevention programming, is there an actual reduction in falls? If you provide housing counseling or eviction prevention programming and help connect residents to rental assistance, is there a reduction in evictions? Or if you're having a financial capability program where you provide rent reporting for credit building, are you seeing improvements in credit scores? Sometimes your outcomes will be directly related to a program like reading levels for an after-school program, while other times they may result from a collective of programs, services, and activities, like improved resident satisfaction or feelings of safety. Most applicants will demonstrate this in an annual evaluation and track outcomes over time. The information gathered should really track what's working and what's not, and provide some clarity on what services should continue, or if any services should be altered to better reach the goals outlined in your property services plan, or to align with changing community priorities. We really want to see that you are tracking both outputs like participation, as well as outcomes at initial certification. However, organizations can earn CORES certification initially if they haven't yet built out their tools for tracking outcomes and are just tracking participation or other outputs. However, you will receive recommendations in your written scoring, and you will be required to demonstrate you are tracking both outputs and outcomes after 5 years at recertification. We have several examples in our CORES resource library of resident indicators and analysis reports from other organizations, as well as resources to help you think about the systems you use to track outcomes and impact in a way that's resident-centered, such as SAFE's Outcomes Toolkit. While these may be helpful resources, please remember that we're not prescriptive to the types of outcomes you are tracking. These outcomes should instead align with your programs and services you provide. So let's put it all together. The Community Scan, the Resident Opportunities and Priorities Assessment, the Property Services Plan, and the Resident Indicators and Analysis Report. Together, these documents can support a robust system of resident services coordination. You may not need to create new documents to reach these thresholds. For example, you might already have a property survey and demographic report that can be combined to meet the requirements for the Resident Opportunities and Priorities Assessment. We also want to note that you don't necessarily need to have 4 individual threshold documents organized in the way we explained. Your organization might have a couple documents that combine the elements we just discussed. For example, we've seen past applicants that have the elements of a community scan and resident opportunities and priorities assessment within one document. Another format we sometimes see is the elements of the resident opportunities and priorities assessment and the resident indicators and analysis report in the same resource. Many CORES applicants can be successful with their own unique format, but we want to see that these 4 documents as a whole are providing us with the elements we just discussed and that we can see a full picture of resident services coordination at the property you choose to highlight in your application. It will be important in the application process that the applicant clearly labels and uploads each of these tools in the appropriate place in the application. If there are 2 tools incorporated in one document, the applicant should upload this document for each tool where it's applicable in the application. This may include uploading the same document for more than one question. If different tools are combined in one file, you should have a clear title for each of the different tools in this one document. You may include a cover page that provides a brief summary of the different tools you have uploaded together to make this clear to the application reviewers. We hope this overview has helped to provide some clarity about our key threshold documents. Please remember to check out our resource library, which has examples of the 4 documents we just discussed, as well as exemplars from CORES certified organizations. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact us at cores@sahfnet.org.